Well, many Australians over the past few days, may well be you or someone you know, has received a letter or an email basically from their accountant saying, oh, by the way, you've got to get a digital identity, a director's digital ID by next Wednesday, November 30th, or you could be fined $1 million. Really? Yes. An act was introduced this year into the Australian Parliament which requires Australian company directors, which could be basically any small company, self-managed super funds and so on, everyday Australians, to obtain a director identification number, a 15-digit digital thing, which the government claims is to avoid illegal activity, company activity. We didn't need one before, but apparently we need one now. Many companies have raised concerns about this new requirement and the way it could compromise corporate and individual privacy. I mean, think of all those Medibank things that have been hacked. We heard of another one today, data being stolen. This is what could happen. Andrea Tokaji is a business consultant and international human rights advocate who is raising the alarm over these digital ID requirements, and she joins me now. Andrea, great to see you again. You're in Canberra. Can you explain why these new digital IDs were introduced? And what is this, is company phoenixing or whatever enough of a problem to require them? And what are the fears that this imposes on everyday Australians?
Thanks, Rowan. I think this is a really important subject to discuss. And there's not been a lot of political debate around this. And we know that amendments to legislation do take sometimes years. And this is an amendment to the Corporations Act. And there's also an amendment to the Treasury Act here. So we know that it's enshrined in current legislation, and we know that it's relevant to all directors. So if you're registered with ASIC, you are either sitting on a board as a director, with a charity, your title is a director, or you, of course, run a company. Now, this is an international number, therefore it's rolled out internationally. Australia is getting this number, it seems like, as a test case study. Now, it's intertwined with a few new government platforms. We've got the new MyGov ID platform. We've got the new ABRS platform, Australian Business Registry Services. And in fact, the chairman of the ATO, Australian Taxation Office, is the registrar of this new ABRS platform. And this is where you sign up. Why? Well, you upload all of your personal identification number onto MyGov ID, which is a new platform, and then it integrates with ABRS, which is the new corporate or business platform, if you will. And on here, with all of your data uploaded, your personal and professional, it is a way the government has said to track whether there's fraudulent activity. Now, we know in history there's been shelf companies created, or, people have, been liquidated, companies have become liquidated, and then of course they set up new companies. Now, they're saying they're cracking down on that, but my question is in relation to privacy and how that's being protected for companies.
Well, I think the question of privacy has to be central to this discussion. We've seen, Andrea, in the past, for example, in the Hawke years, there was talk of an Australian ID card, a pass card, whatever it was called. The public revolted against it and said, no, government shouldn't have this amount of information and control over us. This leaves that for dead. That's child's play compared to what is being proposed now, or what is now law. You have to give all your passport details, your Medicare details, your driver's license, your home, your address, your phone, everything gets onto one ID number, one long number. Now, as we know, as I mentioned before, the two things that disturb me greatly about this is, first, why are they insisting on $1 million fine? I mean, that is terrifying. You don't fine people $1 million for no reason at all. This is to scare the bejesus out of people, to make them sign up to this thing, or to force them to. Directors of companies, as you say, can be anybody from a small business company to someone doing some local charity work who's now suddenly has to have everything of theirs on this global digital platform. This is globalism out of control. Now, what really terrifies me, Andrea, and the reality is The Chinese social credit system, where they monitor what you're doing, if you say something that displeases the government, is already in action in countries like Canada, where they will fine people who protest or dissent against COVID, for example. This gives the government total control over every Australian who is a director of a company. And this is how a social credit system begins. You cannot have a Chinese social credit system without this digital passport for every single Australian business person, correct?
That's right. And in fact, these penalties actually apply for non-registration by the 30th of November this month. And from what I'm hearing, most accountants don't really know much about it. And most people who need to register don't know much about it. And even though I've been running legal lectures on this, it's a really unknown element. And look, this is the nature of new legislation. We won't know how exactly this works, but we're imagining. And so from a click of a button, what has been said is a public servant, a court, or an authorised official can access all of your information just by looking up this particular director digital ID. Now, in addition to that, it has been stated that the registrar of the ABRS, this new platform, is going to take it to consultation and ask the question whether this number should be made public. Now, this is a real opportunity for lobbying because, look, once legislation's passed, it's actually really hard to once again amend it. So we kind of missed that boat. But now, to make our voice heard in relation to our privacy concerns to the registrar is one step we can take. But as you're saying, Rowan, if this is international, how can we turn back the tide?
And also the dangers are, of course, that it could be hacked. We've seen Medibank, so all your details could be hacked and would suddenly be out there. There's no guarantees that that won't happen. And we also know that we've seen activists work against companies. If this is made public, then activists can work against any individual. They can boycott their business. They can get directors thrown out. We've seen the horrendous way in which cancel culture has done this and ruined so many lives. This would make it possible on steroids for activists to destroy businesses who did not partake of the woke leftist orthodoxy. Andrea, great to chat to you. Can people go onto your, just quickly give us your blog where they can find you to voice their support for what you're advocating for?
AndreaConsults.org. Jump on, book in for the legal lecture, download the free lobbying letter, and please make your voice heard.
Fantastic. Thanks, Andrea, so much for coming on the show this evening.